Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. One of the most frustrating things that can happen to a collector is if a fragrance gets hyped online and you buy into the hype, buy the fragrance, and then when you get it, you realize it's good, but it's not as good as all the hype suggested. If enough people do that all at once, a fragrance can be the must-have fragrance of the year and go to disappear completely like within a few months. And that exact same thing happened to me in 2020 with CH Man Privé. I got into collecting in 2020. CH Man Privé was the fragrance to get, but it was expensive. Eventually, I took the plunge, I got it, and look, it is a beautiful scent. The problem is the performance is about 3 hours. I figured that out along with a whole bunch of other people because it was COVID at the time. And so a lot of people were buying fragrances. I think everybody figured out in a very short span that CH Man Privé had no performance. And then in 6 months, it was gone. I have 8 fragrances today, all about 4 to 6 years old. All of them were hyped at one time or another. But unlike CH Man Privé, they did not have a fatal flaw. They did not lose their edge, and quite frankly, most of these won't lose their edge. Fragrance number 1 is Jean Paul Gaultier's Le Mal Le Parfum. This came out in 2020, and I think this fragrance is more hyped now than it was back in 2020. This did not win Fragrance of the Year in 2020. That was won by Guerlain L'Homme Idéal Extreme, and while this is a very pleasant, really nice fragrance, this thing has become, over time, something of a legend, especially among men over 40. If you want proof of that, look at what Jour Parfum 25 is most closely associated with in the fragrance community. It is this. It is kind of similar. This has got iris, it's got vanilla instead of amber, and it's got cardamom. So it's got that amber woody DNA. And I mean, it was created after all, or at least overseen by Quentin Bish, who at the time wasn't a big name in perfumery, and today he's kind of iconic. He is perfect at balancing mass appeal with artistic touches. That is a direct quote that I got from reading a magazine on fragrances. So yeah, it's not mine. But yeah, that's what he's good for, and he really nailed it with this. In retrospect, this fragrance really did have to work. Puig, a couple of years before, had just acquired the rights to Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances. And in 2020, it was the 25th anniversary of the original Le Mal. You put those two things together, there was a lot of pressure on Puig to come through with this fragrance. They wanted something that was going to anchor their men's line going forward. They put really good performance combined with a modern DNA. It is still an all-time classic. And if you are over 40 and you're looking for a really good cool weather fragrance, and at this stage at a reasonable price, this is the way to go. Fragrance number 2 is not going anywhere anytime soon. It is Stronger With You, absolutely, from Emporio Armani. And this, I believe, is one of the very first modern fragrances from a Western house that was aimed specifically at Gen Z, basically men who are now in their teens all the way to their mid-20s. They were driving the fragrance industry. Armani realized what was going on during COVID. They realized a lot of young men had time on their hands, and they were spending a ton of time on TikTok, and they were buying gourmand fragrances like crazy. They knew this because they had Stronger With You intensely, and they were like, what's going on? This thing is selling well beyond expectations. And so when it came time to put out a new fragrance, instead of reinventing the wheel, they came up with this. Stronger With You intensely is vanilla and toffee. This is vanilla and rum. And they were not messing around when it came to the rum note. 9 out of 10 rum notes in fragrances are accords. They're not really rum absolute, which is a very expensive thing. Even Jazz Club behind me, even Jazz Club, it's an accord. It's not real rum. This is, at least according to their website, real rum absolute. That's expensive. That's a big risk. But it worked because they knew the young men were now driving the fragrance industry. And so you put the rum, you mix it with vanilla and a little bit of lavender and that chestnut, that signature part of their line. This sold again like hotcakes. And if you're wondering why there are 2 fragrances in their line that smell very similar, that's the reason. Sadly, that is the one flaw of the Stronger With You line. A lot of the fragrances smell very much alike. But at the same time, the DNA is super popular. It's very, very strong, universally strong. So it is a nice fragrance. But as long as you have one, and I think this is one of the 2 to get, as long as you have one, you're good. That is a direct quote from Tom Ford, who was a creative director of Beau Jour in 2019. And even though the scent here is not particularly edgy, the performance is. This is one of the strongest fragrances in my collection. And barbershop fougères do not lend themselves to really strong performance. There are no notes there that are particularly strong. And yet he prioritized that. And this thing will blow your socks off. If you know anything about Tom Ford, you'll know that he bathes about 4 to 6 times a day. He likes to think in the bath. That is a huge part of his aesthetic and is a huge part of his fragrances as well. So what he wanted, aside from a really strong barbershop fougère, was a really clean and smooth one. And to do that, he put 2 lavender notes here. Now, the first lavender note is your typical Provence lavender, but the second one is a hybrid lavender note. I, in the past, have erroneously called it English lavender. Apparently, that's not true. It's a specially created hybrid lavender note that is very smooth and clean, and it cleans up the sharp edges of the lavender, making for a really, really clean barbershop fougère experience. Of course, you're also going to get oak moss, 4 other aromatic notes, and then amber and patchouli in the base. So you're talking about a very strong, very clean barbershop classic. Even though there's been a lot of rumors of discontinuation, the fragrance itself is still for sale on Tom Ford's website, so it hasn't been discontinued. But you gotta remember, barbershop fragrances have been around since 1882 when Aubigant created Fougère Royale. And so, yeah, even if it does get discontinued, this will always be, at least from what I've tried, the barbershop fragrance to get. And I mean, they've been around almost 150 years, so yeah, won't be losing its edge. One guaranteed way for a fragrance to keep its edge is to be completely original and yet still appealing. And Laurent Mathilde from Cartier did that with L'Envol Eau de Parfum. And yeah, this is definitely an original fragrance. It is one of the lightest, maybe the lightest, most transparent fragrance I've ever tried. And if you look at the notes, you would think that's impossible. You've got 5 woody notes led largely by Gaillac wood, which is a smoky, leathery, very pungent wood. And then you've got a ton of honey. And honey is the sweetest of the sweet notes. So you've got 2 like really, really strong notes. Throw in some iris as well, and you'd be expecting a very different fragrance than you get with this, because this is loaded. And I mean loaded with violet leaf, giving this a very light and airy feel. And I mean, that's where the name L'Envol comes from. It's a French word meaning flight. The only problem with this fragrance is you look at the notes and you think you're going to get this deep, rich honey. You're going to get this really strong, pungent Gaillac wood, but you're not. You're going to get more violet leaf than anything else. So as long as you know that, this is a really good buy, because Laurent Mathilde is very similar to Jean-Claude Elena from Hermès. Both of them like transparent, light fragrances, and both of them like modern, minimalist fragrances. That's exactly what this is. The weird thing about it, though, is the performance is a lot better than you would expect. I mean, the projection, couple of feet, but you do notice it when you put it on. And longevity, no problem. 6 to 8 hours. Yeah, this one will be around for a long time. Fragrance number 5 is 6 years old, but I am not sure it has peaked yet. This is Ani by Nishane, and this came out in 2019 to a relatively obscure house. Nishane is a Turkish house, and I mean, it had Hasavat, but Hasavat is kind of an Aventus style fragrance, so Nishane really didn't have its own identity until this arrived. And this is a really nice, fresh, wearable vanilla. And so it became a cult hit, and it gave the house some real recognition. But then things got crazy in 2023 because this was cloned by French Avenue. They called it Spectre Ghost. And this being a wearable vanilla, a gourmandy style of fragrance, it shot to real prominence, especially among Gen Z men who are really driving the fragrance industry at the moment. And so if you're going to try a clone and you really like it, you want to try the original, right? So this fragrance is still really hot. Now, this is predominantly a vanilla fragrance, but the wearability here comes from 2 notes. A lot of bergamot and what's called blue ginger in the open. Blue ginger is a fresher, less spicy ginger. So you got the fresh blue ginger, the fresh bergamot, you combine it with the vanilla, It makes it very fresh and breathable and wearable. Then you've got the nice cardamom in the base. And then you've got 24-hour performance. I've gotten 24 hours with this decant on a couple of occasions, even with the small sprayers. So this fragrance covers all the bases. Gen Z men absolutely love it. And as long as you're catering to them at the moment, this one's around for a while. Fragrance number 6 is the only fragrance that I know for sure lost me a regular viewer. This is Rasasi Hawas. And in 2024, Paco Rabanne came out with Invictus Aqua 2024. And generally the feeling was at the time that it was very similar to Invictus Aqua 2016, which was kind of the iconic fragrance. And people always saw this as a clone, like a little inferior to that. So I said, oh, maybe that'll make Rasasi Hawas redundant. Well, this viewer did not like that comment one bit. She loved Hawas, and I never saw her again. And when you get that kind of emotion behind fragrances, and there's no question, just the name Rasasi Hawas, and whether it's one of the new flankers or whether it's the original, it does engender emotion, mainly because it combines something very difficult to do. Here, what you're going to get is something sweet and fruity, something very fresh enough to wear in warm weather, and really good performance to go along with it. Rare combo. So the sweet fruitiness comes from a combination of apple and plum. Then you're going to get lemon and bergamot for some freshness, and ambroxan and cinnamon. You put them all together with, I would say, 6 to 8 hours performance here. Some people get a little bit more. Yeah. It's 10 years old, but it does something special. It's not going anywhere. Fragrance number 7 is Halloween Man X, and this fragrance, much like Hawas, does 3 really good things. Number 1, it's reasonably priced. Number 2, the scent is very pleasant. And number 3, it performs like a monster. I'm talking 8 to 10 hours for like a $40 fragrance. It's kind of gourmandy. You've got coffee, whiskey, and tonka, so it's got a sweet vibe. There's some spices. There's cardamom and cinnamon. But it's one of those fragrances where, if funds are tight, or if you're a young guy and you want to go clubbing and you don't have a lot to spend, you can always get Halloween Man X. You're going to smell good. I mean, especially in cool weather. This is not something you want to wear in the summer, but for, at least 6 months of the year, as long as the weather is cool, is a great fragrance to have. Finally, we have Azzaro Chrome United, and this is more about the entire Azzaro Chrome line. And it's actually an older line. It really doesn't fit entirely into the premise of the video, but I like what the line does. Basically, you're going to get good quality, long-lasting, 4 or 5 hour fresh fragrances, but all the Chrome fragrances are a little bit different to suit different tastes. And Chrome United is the one that I like because it has a tea musk combination that was made popular by Silver Mountain Water in 1995. Now this is from 2013, but it's got the tea musk, and so it's got a blue fragrance feel with the soothing nature of that tea musk combination. It also has a lot of woods. It's got some spices, some black pepper in it. But yeah, for me, it's the tea musk combo that I really like. But if you like a different kind of blue fragrance, there's a bunch of different chromes that you can pick up, including the original. I think that's kind of neat, kind of different. And the fact is the price is perfectly reasonable. So yeah, I kind of like that concept. So sometimes having an edge just means not having a fatal flaw. That's going to make you stick around for a while. Some of these fragrances have kind of neat ideas, a little bit off the beaten path, but just not having that fatal flaw and being pleasant is enough to keep you going. And I think these 8 fragrances, 7 and the Chrome line, fit that perfectly. Thanks for watching.